Imagine standing on a mountain and being told that in just 38 months, this entire landscape would become the largest train station on Earth.
Not in decades, not in 10 years, but in just 38 months. A feat of modern engineering.
Most nations spend longer approving the paperwork for projects of this scale, but China chose to build the future instead.
This is Chongqing East Station, a megastructure so massive it required over 2 million cubic meters of concrete, enough to build entire cities. It also required 366,000 tons of steel and 40,000 workers, all working together on this vertical transportation machine. And the most unbelievable part? This station wasn't built on flat land. Engineers first had to cut an entire mountain apart, blasting through rock, reshaping the terrain, and creating a foundation strong enough to carry one of the most complex railway hubs ever. The platforms here are longer than the Eiffel Tower is tall, and every single piece had to fit together with millimeter precision. This wasn't just construction. It was engineering warfare against gravity, time, and the mountain itself.
And somehow, China finished it on schedule.
To understand why this station looks impossible, you first have to understand the city that built it. This is Chongqing.
A place so chaotic, so vertical, that people call it the 8D city.
In most cities, roads stay on the ground. In Chongqing, highways pass above apartment buildings, and subway lines disappear into mountains. Here, trains literally pass through residential towers, not beside them, but through them. For millions of people living here, that's completely normal. The city is built across steep mountains, deep valleys, rivers, bridges, tunnels, and stacked layers of concrete stretching in every direction. Nothing about Chongqing is flat, nothing about it is simple, and that's exactly why China chose this place for one of the most ambitious railway stations ever attempted. Because if any city on Earth could handle a transportation hub this insane, it was this one. 20 kilometers from the city center, engineers looked at a massive mountain slope and saw something nobody else could see. The future transportation heart of Western China. Not just a train station, but a machine designed to connect an entire megacity. In Chongqing, impossible infrastructure is just part of daily life. But before a single column could rise, before the concrete, the steel, or the massive roof, engineers faced a far bigger problem. There was no construction site, only a mountain. Every inch of the terrain had to be scanned in 3D before the first machine even touched the ground. Because this wasn't flat land waiting for a building. It was solid rock standing in the way of one. Then the explosions began. Controlled blasting operations ripped through the mountainside day and night, while excavators removed millions of cubic meters of earth. The deeper the crews dug, the more dangerous the site became, and cutting the mountain flat was only half the battle. The surrounding slopes constantly pushed back with pressure, loose rock, and rainwater. So engineers built massive retaining walls around the perimeter, along with drainage systems powerful enough to keep the future foundation from turning into unstable mud.
Only after reshaping the mountain itself could the real construction finally begin. But flattening the mountain solved only one problem. Now the station needed something even more important. A foundation strong enough to carry an entire vertical city. Because this structure wouldn't just support trains.
It would carry 8 massive floors, thousands of passengers, steel columns, and a 16,500-ton roof.
Only after reshaping the mountain itself could the real construction finally begin. These invisible pillars would carry the entire weight of the station. Inside every pile, workers lowered giant rebar cages, steel skeletons designed to absorb enormous pressure and movement.
Then came one of the most critical stages, concrete pouring. Instead of pouring from the top like a normal building, engineers used special pipes. Engineers used special trail pipes to pump concrete from the bottom upward. Without this method, the concrete could separate and weaken the pile internally. Above the piles, massive pile caps and ground beams connected everything together into one giant structural grid, spreading the load across the entire site. Most passengers will never see this foundation, but without it, the station above could never exist. Once the foundation was secured, the next phase began immediately. And this was where the project truly started to look impossible.
Because Chongqing East was not being built as a simple train station, it was being built like a vertical transportation city, one floor at a time.
Completions. The first lower levels were dedicated to infrastructure hidden beneath the surface. Metro connections, underground service tunnels.
Above that came the massive high-speed rail platforms, long concrete structures designed to support trains moving at hundreds of kilometers per hour every single day. The central concourse slowly began taking shape high above the mountain slope. A gigantic open passenger space. This area required extreme precision. The curved edges of the floors had to match future glass walls perfectly. Meanwhile, thousands of workers continued operating across multiple levels at the same time. Concrete crews, steel teams. As each floor was completed, another layer was added above it. Retail spaces, restaurants, passenger waiting zones, and transport corridors. Floor after floor, the station continued rising into the sky. By the time the 8th and final concrete level was complete, but the most iconic part of Chongqing East was still missing. The structure that would transform this station from a giant building into a symbol of the city itself. The tree columns, rising 41 meters into the air. These massive steel structures became the visual identity of the entire station. Not ordinary support pillars, but gigantic branching columns, inspired by Chongqing's city tree. Each column was engineered to carry enormous sections of the roof above, while distributing weight through multiple branching arms. The design increased structural stability, while also creating the feeling of an artificial steel forest inside the station.
Then came the outer skin. More than 1,200 stainless steel scales were fitted onto every single column by hand.
Workers operated at different heights simultaneously, 5 meters, 20 meters, even 35 meters above the ground. At first, the columns looked like exposed industrial steel, but slowly, layer by layer, they transformed into architectural sculptures. This was the genius of Chongqing East. The engineers created the strength, the architects created the identity.
But finishing the structure was only half the mission. A station this massive had to function perfectly.
Agents. Deep below the station, metro tunnels were connected directly into the building, while crews installed endless networks of legends. Massive HVX systems were added to control Chongqing's extreme temperatures, keeping the giant glass concourse cool during brutal summer heat.
Then came the railway systems themselves. The tracks had to be aligned with millimeter precision.
At 350 kilometers per hour, even tiny errors could become dangerous. Engineers used laser measurements. The overhead catenary wires also had to remain at exact heights and tension levels, despite changing temperatures throughout the year.
Even the platform screen doors were calibrated to match the stopping position of every train perfectly.
Then the testing began. Every signal, every escalator, every emergency system, and every possible failure scenario was tested before approval.
Because for a station operating at this scale, construction was not truly finished until the entire system performed flawlessly.
But before a single passenger could enter the station, everything had to be tested again and again and again.
At high-speed rail velocities, there is no room for small mistakes. So engineers began one of the final and most important. Every rail alignment was checked repeatedly using laser measurements. Every signal system was tested individually.
Escalators, platform doors, electrical systems, ventilation, emergency lighting, fire suppression networks. Every component was pushed through failure scenarios before approval.
Even the trains themselves first moved slowly through the station before high-speed testing began. After every run, engineers created correction lists. Fix, retest, repeat. The process continued until the list reached 0. Because this station was designed to move thousands of passengers every hour at extreme speed. And at that scale, precision is safety.
In April 2022, this was nothing but a mountain slope outside Chongqing. No roof, no steel forest,
But in only 38 months, that mountain was transformed into the largest train station on Earth.
More than 2 million cubic meters of concrete, 366,000 tons of steel, 40,000 workers, 8
and somehow, everything opened exactly on schedule.
On June 27, 2025, the first passengers finally entered Chongqing East Station.
The escalators moved, the metro connected below, the trains departed at full speed.
What once looked impossible was suddenly real.
And maybe that's the most incredible part of this entire story.
Passengers walking through the station today don't think about the mountain that once stood here, or the millions of hours hidden inside every beam, tunnel, bolt, and track.
They simply see a train station.
But behind it stands one of the most ambitious engineering projects of the modern world. This is Chongqing East.
And this is the future of megastructure construction.
If you enjoyed this journey into one of the most insane engineering projects on Earth, subscribe to Nova World for more megastructures, hidden technologies, and
because around the world, humans are building things that once existed only in science fiction.
And we're just getting started.